Howdy folks, I'm Dirk Tharpe and welcome to the Carolinas Concrete Cowboy. Today we're going to have some fun doing concrete crafts with the cowboy. So let's saddle up and ride. So for today's material, I've chosen Silicone anchor cement. Now don't get me wrong, you can use any type of concrete you wish when making concrete figurines. It's just when you choose to use a grout, meaning there's no stone in the anchor cement, I'm going to get a much smoother result and I don't have to work the materials the same. So for ease, usually when I'm doing these with kids, I'll stick to using the anchor cement. All right, the second component is our molds. Here you saw at the beginning R2-D2 and Lego Man. Here are the molds they come in. Now let's look at R2-D2. This is a silicone baking mold. Do not buy aluminum baking molds like you see at your local craft store to try to pour concrete or anything with cement in it. It will warp that mold. They really etch the mold and stick to the mold. There's a bad reaction there. You've got to use silicone for this hobby trick. The silicone mold really contains a lot more details than you can get in those other molds anyway. I find these molds on Amazon. Now I'm not plugging Amazon, but I've just found there's a greater variety at my fingertips using Amazon than I've seen in the local craft stores. Moving on, the second type of mold was Lego Man. See how flexible that is? The problem is when you get this kind of mold, because you're not sure what it's going to look like till it gets to you. When you find them that are too flexible, what happens is you pour concrete, you pour your grout, whatever in here, it will deflect the mold and it'll actually distort it, or it'll spill out, worst case. So what do you do about that? I wanted to show you before we start pouring a mold maker's trick I was taught. Make a mold cast for the body. So you simply you would place sand is what I use into the mold to make it the shape it will be when it's filled with concrete. I'm using the actual figure in this case. Set it into a container large enough to hold it. You need to spray your Formalise, which in this case is simply cooking spray, all over it, and then pour plaster of Paris. So we've made a mold box to hold the mold. So when we pour into here, when it's done, I work it out gently so as not to destroy the plaster, but the shape is in the plaster. That way I get the desired look at the end. All right, we're going to mix these materials now. See you after they're mixed and we'll actually pour the molds. All right, we've mixed up our batter. Milkshake consistency is the key word, milkshake, for the anchor cement. The next step is to take any kind of a cooking spray, and you're going to coat the inside of the mold. Do the same with our Lego Man. It will not discolor your concrete or your grout. Don't worry about that. All right, now we're ready to pour. We're going to pour the R2-D2 and show you that technique. Now, when you get about 3/4 full, distribute the materials and take your fingers and massage the mold. The reason is there's a lot of details that you assume are covered that may not be. So go ahead and do that. It's because we're using a grout, it's really running like a milkshake, so that step is crucial if we used a concrete with stone in it. Now I'm going to finish filling out the sides. It stays the shape of the mold, so you don't have to worry about it rising. What you have is what you get. Vibrate it. At that point, you may want to scoop just a tiny bit out of the mold because you just want it level with what you're pouring. Once again, vibrate it one last time and leave it alone, because these materials, if you rejiggle, you wake them back up. We're going to stop now, and I'm going to pour Lego Man when we come back. Same technique, now we'll pour the Lego Man. Lego person, to be correct, but it does look like a Lego Man. This one is a slick mold, as you saw beforehand, so I'm not as worried about doing all the pressing into the crevices like we did on our R2-D2 robot here. The little bubbles that come to the surface, they'll be all right. You can pop them if there's too many, and then just jiggle it again and let it alone, because what that is the material settling and those air bubbles are coming out the back. That's what you want it to do. All right, folks, that's it for this time. We're going to stop, and when we return, 20-30 minutes at most are going to pass, and we'll pull the molds and see what our results are. So welcome back, folks. It's been 30 minutes since we poured the molds. They've set up now. Now remember, this is a hot day. One note of caution I want to throw in before we proceed is, if we had poured this material with concrete instead of a product like the anchor cement, you would need to let this sit overnight before you strip the mold. But this is anchor cement, it's ready to roll, it's ready to strip. So to help me, I've brought off the trail the Carolina Concrete Cowboy sidekick, Jack Houlihan. So without further ado, let's strip these molds. Jack's gonna do the raised mold. I'm gonna show you the extra steps while he's doing that involved when you use the plaster bed. So the plaster bed, the reason we said spray the, every time respray your mold before you pour it on the inside and the outside is, you have to actually get it out of the plaster bed and then strip the mold. Okay? So we can see how they turned out. Now, last thing of note, we'll look at the robot. When you're done, after you pull it, see these concrete tips, the flanges that stuck out in the mold? They don't hurt a thing. You can take needle nose pliers, take your fingers. While it's freshly pulled, it's the softest you're going to have it. Go ahead and remove that extra material. It won't break it, it won't break the mold, but if you wait till later, it becomes too rigid. See that? So you're going to go ahead and clean it up like you want, and then you need to leave these, you can put it in a water bed. This one's so clean, I would just leave it out in an air-conditioned room overnight. But do let them cure, because that's the last step when you mess with and make concrete molds. So I hope you've enjoyed our crafting with the Carolina Concrete Cowboy. And until next time,
Yippee-ki-yay concrete.
Legal disclaimer. The views expressed by the Carolinas Concrete Cowboy, although profound, and his actions, albeit masterful, are his and his alone. If you've enjoyed these videos, please like and subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, Carolinas Concrete Cowboy. And by all means, we look for your feedback. If you've got a session you'd like us to do, or some questions you'd like answered, give me the feedback below, or email me at carolinasconcretecowboy@gmail.com. Happy trails.